And how to name it would just be like a capital letter. A. Well, how would I define that? Or how would I demonstrate that? I'd have a point. Whoops, that's what I was talking about. I'd have a point and go capital A, just like that. That seems very simple, and it is. But we want to make a difference, or we want to be able to distinguish the difference between the point A and, say, maybe a line. So now a line can be represented two ways. How you would name that would be A to B, and it'd have two arrows going this way. Or we could think of it as B to A. All right. So let me define what a line is. A line, you have to have 2 points. And it goes from one point to the other point and keeps on going in an infinite direction forever. That's why we have the arrow. Or we can go from the other point to the other line. So let's draw that. So I can have my point A here, and I can have a point B here. Now when I go to draw my line, I could go from A to B, like that. Or I can go from B to A, like that. But as you can see, it kind of goes, and it's, my smart board isn't being so smart today. But as you can see, I can't draw a line without the 2 points. And I can label this line as going from A to B or B to A. Doesn't matter? No, not really. Okay. So the next thing that we need to talk about is plane. By the way, I want to highlight some things that aren't in the book. A line exists in one dimension. A plane, well, that exists in 2 dimensions. Put your thinking caps on. Where does a point exist? Now, one dimension means I have one line. And in a second, I'll define what a plane is, which is kind of like 2 lines, sort of. But where does a point exist? How many dimensions is a point? What I mean by dimension, the line, I can measure the length from A to B, the B to A, and if we think as a line segment, but if I think of a line, it's an infinitely long line, but I'm measuring in one direction. I'm measuring a length. When it comes to the plane, the way that I would write a plane is I would just use, I could do capital letter P, or I would need at least 3 points in the plane, so I could say just the points in the plane A, B, C. And so what that would look like if I were to draw a diagram of that, I would have a plane that looks like this. And I'm going to have to draw a little small here, but I would have the point A, maybe the point B, and some point C. And then I suppose I could just label the plane as P. So there's 2 ways to define it. I have 3 points in the plane, but I can measure the length of the plane, and I can measure the width of the plane. That's why it's 2 dimensions. So let's go back to that original question that I asked you guys. How many dimensions do we measure the point? Can you measure the length of a point? No. So how many dimensions would that be? 0. 0, 0. 0 dimensions. Okay? 0 dimensions. By the way, because we're doing geometry and we're going to have a lot of letters, we might use the letter O. So one way that I let you guys know that I'm actually writing the number 0, I'll put a little slash through it. Why don't you guys do the same? When you get in the habit of doing that now. Okay? So now that we've defined some things, and that's what we're talking about for 1.2, we're going to talk about points and planes and all that stuff. Let's look at example number 1 in the text. So example number 1 in the text, we're going to, let me draw the figure, and I want you guys to draw it too. Now the reason I'm taking my time in drawing this is I want you guys to get into the habit of drawing these images. Remember yesterday for our homework what we did is we tried to take three-dimensional objects and we wrote them in two-dimensional nets or drawings, and we did isometric, right, and orthographic. And so because paper's in 2 dimensions, we have to kind of wrap our minds around taking three-dimensional measurements and planes and representing them in the 2-dimensional world. Alright, so we talked about points, we talked about lines, we talked about a bunch of things. Okay. Talked about planes. So I have points, I have planes, I have lines. And so there's some questions that your textbook asks us. So question number 1 is, ways to name, and I'm just going to write it and you tell me what I'm saying. Okay? Ways to name QT. Well, QT is what, guys? It's a line. Now, to name a line, I need 2 points on that line.
Do you want like the diagram?
No. Let me give you an example. We could just name it line M, right? Because notice that this, from here to here, is line M, or QT, right? What's another name to name it? Yeah.
TQ.
TQ. Right? So we could go the other way. Is there a third way to name it? Yes. TN. Oh, wow. You guys are pretty good. That exists on that same line, right?
Yes.
There's one more way, I think. Yes.
I have a question.
Yeah.
M, why is it line M?
Oh, it's line M. I think when we went back over our definition, that's the one thing I forgot to mention. So if we go back a page, let's add that to our notes, just because Mr. Adams was so excited. A third way that you can name this is you could say line M, or line lowercase m.
So it's always M.
It could be M or L or K, but it's always lowercase. And it usually has the word line in front of it. So line, lowercase, letter. Okay. Sorry about that. Got a little excited. Woo! Oh, geometry. All right. So now there's one other way to name that. Who knows the next way? Yes.
Is it just point T?
Well, point T is just a point. We want to name a line. Okay. So that was a good guess, though. Point T is on it. Let's pick on somebody different. Yeah. and t. Okay. All right, let's do another example. Oh, wow. This is a good one. How do we name, or other ways to name, the plane P? Well, let's do some quick review. You could just name it P or 3 points on the plane, right? That's how you name a plane? All right, let's try it. Give me something. Anyone? Yes?
VAS.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's sloppy handwriting. It's an R. this one here? It's an R, yeah. It's an R. It's a perfectly drawn R. All right, come on, you guys. Don't you guys recognize an R when you see it? All right, so she said VAS, but it's really VRS, right? So yeah, that's one way to do it. What's another way to do it? Yes? Yeah, you could say QVS, QRV, any 3 of these points, right? There are 4 points contained in the plane, and I just need 3 of those 4 points in the plane. Could I include the point T? No.
It's outside.
It's outside of the plane. Yes.
So any points inside the plane would count?
That's right. Any 3. You need at least 3 points to define a plane.
So
Do you know why we need at least 3 points?
Or else it'd be a line.
Yeah, because if we only did 2 points, it would just be a line.
oh,
Does that make sense?
yeah.
And they have to be, here's a fancy word, 3 non-collinear points. Okay? Well, let me think about this. Let's think about that. Do we have RQS up there? Do we have SQR? No. Now, Mr. Adams did that subconsciously. Why can't I say RQS? They're in the plane. Yes.
Because they're already in a line.
Because they're what we call collinear. They exist in a line, so technically I'm not defining a plane. Even though that line exists in the plane based on the drawing, I would want to avoid this label because they're collinear. So we would want non-collinear points. Now 2 of them could be in a line. The third can't be. Does that make sense? All right, we're almost done with the formality of this. Now here's a good question. I gotta make a little room here. May I erase the left side?
Yes.
So let's add some more definitions. Collinear. I can never remember. Yeah, it's 2 L's. Collinear. Well, that just means same line. What do you think coplanar means? Same plane. Okay? So coplanar means same plane. Now the third question for example number 1 is, name 3 collinear points and then they ask you to name 4 coplanar points. All right, let's do the first one. What does collinear mean? Same line. Can you give me 3 points that are on the same line? Bless you. Huh? So we could say R, Q, S. Is there another? SQR is another way to word it, but there's another line there. So yes.
TQN.
Yeah, TQN. Okay. Technically, we should probably put little commas in between because I don't want to say I'm defining a plane by using collinear points. All right, what about 4 coplanar points? Points that exist in a plane. Yes?
VRQS.
V, R, Q, S. What about T and N? They're not in the plane. They're points that exist on the line, but they're not in the plane. Does that make sense?
Yeah.